I'll show you how to quickly and efficiently make miniature books using a variety of materials. We'll arrange some of the books into various stacks, both for ease of decorating and to make your miniature scene more interesting to look at. I'm using this file I printed from Etsy. I left the link in the description. You can use a straight edge and a craft knife to cut out the book covers, but I prefer using scissors. Scissors go faster for me, and I can cut in a more precise way. I'm not being obsessive about it, but I am trying to cut on the outside of the printed black line. The books have these small white gaps between them, so I'm cutting those off. You'll see that I save time and effort later by doing this step now. I cut all of the little white paper strips, so I end up with groups of 3 book covers. The first material I'm gluing my book covers to is this mat board. I'm cutting the mat board 3/8 of an inch wide. Mat board is made from compressed layers of paper, so it takes a few passes of the craft knife to cut through it. You can buy a large sheet for $7. You can also ask Michael's craft store or another framing store for free scraps. Whenever I'm gluing paper to paper, my preferred glue is a glue stick. It does a great job of securing the paper to other pieces of paper or cardboard, and it doesn't cause any warping since it's low in moisture. I added glue on 2 sides and along the edge. I'm centering the spine of the cutout books right along the edge of the mat board. I'm adding each group of 3 book covers right next to the other one without leaving a gap. I'm pressing the book covers onto the mat board, starting at the spine and squeezing out to the edges to make sure there aren't any wrinkles in the cover. It doesn't look very realistic or interesting if books are all the same thickness and size. I'm making some slightly thicker books by adding a few scraps of paper from an art book. These paper scraps I used are about the same thickness as cardstock. You can see the 3/8 of an inch wide mat board is a little bit too big because there's white visible on the edge of these book covers. This is because I made the mat board thicker by adding the extra paper, so the cover can't reach the edge anymore. It's not very noticeable, but if it bothers you, you can make your strip more narrow. I'm making even thicker books using a double layer of mat board. I folded mine over itself, but you could also cut a piece and stack it. I used white glue to hold it over time and some hot glue to hold it right away. Before gluing on the covers to the double layer of mat board, I trimmed some of the width. This helps prevent the white edges from showing. The book file I printed out has different size spines. I used some of the thicker spined books for the double layer of mat board. You can use some other materials in addition to or instead of the mat board. Foam core makes for some great books because it's really easy to cut and it's already white. You could also use strips of cardboard. Before I start cutting out these books, I'm sealing them with a layer of gloss Mod Podge. This helps protect the paper book covers, adds some realistic sheen, and helps the paper stick to whatever material you chose. You could use matte Mod Podge instead or any other kind of sealer you have. For the single layer of mat board, I can use regular old scissors to cut them out. I removed the white paper gap between the books earlier, so I only have to make one cut with the scissors now instead of cutting on both sides of the white strip. I also used scissors to cut out the foam core and cardboard books. Cardboard is a great material for making books since it's easy to cut, readily available, and it's free. The pages aren't white, but they still work really well as filler books on a bookshelf since you can't see the pages anyway. The books I made with a double layer of mat board are too thick for the scissors. The scissors end up crushing the edges, so I'm cutting them with a craft knife. Adding dozens or hundreds of books to your project one at a time is pretty overwhelming, so I separated mine into piles according to size. I'm gluing the books in various stacks so they're easier to manage. This group has all the same covers like encyclopedias, but they have various thicknesses. I glued these books off-center so they can be stacked on a table or a bookshelf. Here I glued an off-center stack next to some vertical books. I glued these books side by side, and while the glue is still wet, I'm tilting the books. This is how you can make it look like these books toppled over and are leaning against the upright books near them. All of these book covers are the same depth, so I'm cutting a sliver off of this book to make it smaller. You can also trim the top of books to make them shorter. I glued the cardboard books side by side to hide their brown edges. Pre-arranging your stacks makes it a lot easier to decorate your space and makes your bookshelves more interesting to look at. I kept some of the books loose to scatter around the room and for flexibility in decorating. These books look really brand new with crisp edges, so here's a way you can make the mat board books look used. I'm adding some separation between the glued layers of paper using my craft knife. You can watch this video to see how I made these glasses and some other half-scale decor and furniture.